There are 5 levels of awareness of human experience. The first is ordinary awareness. The second is self-awareness. The third is spiritual awareness. The fourth is divine awareness. And the fifth is divine union. You might want to think of these as rings of experience. And it begins on the outside ring with ordinary awareness. Now, with ordinary awareness, life just happens to you. It's kind of imagine yourself in a movie theater. You go in, you sit down, and you begin to watch what's happening on the screen. The characters go through the motions, things happen to them. This is much like ordinary awareness. You're kind of buffeted by all that's happening in your life. Like me last week. Goodness, did you ever have one of those weeks where life was just life pulled the rug out from under you, and you're left staring at the ceiling, wondering how you got there? That was me last week. So I was working on these videos and they wouldn't work, and everything was going wrong. The sound was going wrong. The picture wouldn't work. I was so wound up by the middle of the week. And then I had to go get an immunization shot. And when I did, I got so sick. I was down for 3 days, feeling nauseous, achy, and feverish. That was definitely not on my to-do list. So life was just buffeting me entirely. So this kind of awareness is very much like stimulus response. I'm hungry, I eat. I'm bored, I watch a video. I get sick, I lay down. I'm lonely, I call a friend. It's Sunday morning, I go to church. So the next level of awareness is self-awareness. Self-awareness is instead of things just happening to you, you come to recognize yourself and you try to take control of your life. You're going to make changes. You make lists. You set goals. Pretty much all for self. You're going to make your life better. And it's all focused on the externals in your life. It's kind of like the illustration of the TARDIS in Doctor Who. Remember? So let's elaborate on that illustration. So instead of opening the door and going inside, you're transfixed on the outside. You clean the outside of the police box. You wash the windows. You might even paint the police box. But you never open the door to the box to see what is really on the inside. You can be very religious at this phase. You might be involved in ministry. You might have even been in church your whole life. But remember the journey to the deep blue ocean? There are parts of it that are all about self. And this self-awareness phase is all about self. In this type of awareness, you have an inner dialogue going on all the time, but you just let it roll. You're not very conscious of it, and you don't really think about it much. So in this phase, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. The next phase is spiritual awareness. So once you've had enough of trying to control your outer life, and either it's working, but you're still not really satisfied, or it's not working, and you're frustrated, you can come into spiritual awareness. So in this headspace, you begin to look inside. You begin to wake up. You begin to see that there's more to the TARDIS than there appears. Here you actually crack open the door and take a look inside. Maybe you read some books on happiness. Maybe you take a psychology course or see a therapist. Maybe you begin to think about if there's a God out there somewhere. Maybe you get serious about seeking this God. In this place, you may begin to think about your self-talk, but you're still not very conscious of it. In this space, you realize that you are more than flesh and bones, that you're more than the molecules and atoms. You realize you are a spiritual being, but you're not really sure exactly what that means. The next level of awareness is divine awareness. Now, divine awareness is what I imagine that Adam and Eve lived with and dwelt with in the Garden of Eden at all times, although they never had the trauma of having to go through any of the other stages. In divine awareness, they knew nothing but God. Their entire awareness was of the one who is present with them. They really had no concept of a separate sense of self or being estranged from this being who was really their whole world. Their divine awareness was perfect before the fall. So now, for us, it's a bit different since we need to emerge through all of the different awarenesses that we've discussed. It's ordinary awareness, self-awareness, spiritual awareness, in order to come into divine awareness. Divine awareness is when we glimpse the reality of the divine presence with us. That this glimpse becomes a glance, which becomes an awareness that is almost like a sixth sense. And we begin to dwell in the reality that God is with us all the time. This is true abiding. And we're going to continue to talk about this a little more as we go through the week. The final is divine union, where it's a state that exists in reality, though few of us have ever really consciously reached this state. It's a state that is one that we are not only just aware of God's presence, but we know that we are connected to Him in a divine union. The Bible tells us that we are united with Christ at our very core. And in Jesus' high priestly prayer in John 17, 22 and 23, He prays that His disciples would be one, just as He and the Father are one, because He is in us and He and the Father are one. In this divine union stage, we realize that we are united with Christ right this very minute. Paul puts it this way in Colossians 1:27, Christ in you, the hope of glory. Now, Henry Nouwen, as we've talked about, talks about how spiritual formation isn't about steps or stages on the way to perfection. It's more about the movement from the mind to the heart through prayer in its many forms that reunite us with God, each other, and our truest self. That is our goal. Our goal is to be reunited with God, be reunited with ourselves, and be reunited with one another. And so we can experience our internal space as open to others, and we're free to be ourselves all the time. And when we come to this place, we have moved towards divine awareness into divine union. So until next time, Shalom.